Hey, Marcia here. Have you noticed that your hair is thinning? Or that when you take a shower, more hair is coming out? Well, if that's the case, you absolutely want to listen to this episode because we're talking about hair loss and natural approaches. And the interesting thing is that so many of the root causes of hair loss are also root causes of osteoporosis. And when you address them, great things can happen, including improving your hair. And our special guest today is Julie Olson. And Julie is a triple board certified functional medicine nutritionist whose mission is to help women worldwide restore their health, hope, and hair loss naturally so they look and feel their very best. With more than 10 years of experience and success stories, Julie is known to skillfully investigate, discover, and communicate root cause resolutions to revitalize health and naturally regrow hair. Julie has used these same strategies to personally overcome her own health struggles of hair loss, digestive issues, fatigue, and autoimmunity. And today we discussed the root causes as well as some of the natural treatments we can all use. So it's full of great information. Stay tuned. Welcome, Julie. I'm really happy to have you here on the podcast. This is a topic that affects so many people. And I think the sad thing is that people think hair loss is just inevitable. Oh, I'm getting older, my hair is thinning. And they don't realize that it could be a symptom and that there's so much to do. So I'm really excited to have you and really enlighten everybody to all the possibilities.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation.
The interesting thing is that many of the root causes of hair loss are similar or the same as bone loss. And so often I'll see people and I'll ask them and, oh yeah, but they don't put it together that maybe one of the underlying root causes is affect because sometimes with osteoporosis, it's silent. You don't know but they're having hair loss and other issues. So why don't you share the most common underlying root causes you see when it comes to bone loss? And not
Right,
bone loss, when it comes,
hair
what are
loss.
the underlying root causes that you see with hair loss?
Right. And before I go into that, I just want to say that it's actually a gift to have hair loss. It's not a disease, but it's a symptom and it's a sign that something is out of balance under the hood per se. And like you said, bone loss, you can't see it. So hair loss could actually be a gift, especially for these women that don't even know they're having bone loss. And so then they might actually do something about it, as I did. Like before I got into this field, I didn't realize I was a hot mess. I mean, I really was a hot mess, but it wasn't until I lost my hair in chunks that I finally paid attention to it and figured out that there's something I can do about it naturally. I went from doctor to doctor and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing you can do. You're just getting older. You're under stress. Um, Here you can take some drugs." And they're lifetime drugs or serums, Rogaine or what have you. And they're not guaranteed to work anyway, but we don't know what to do. They basically just dismissed me. So, I'm turning this around. I'm really on a mission to help women worldwide not have to go through what I went through to address it when they are losing more than 100, 150 hairs a day for multiple months. You want to address it. It's definitely something underlying in your body that's out of balance. But if you don't address it, it can get to the point where there's scarring of the hair follicles. Then it's almost nearly impossible to regrow hair. So again, it can be a gift, an opportunity. And to answer your question now,
Well,
there's
wait, actually, before
over
you answer my question, you just opened up a whole can of I just want to say, I think you really hit on something so important is that a lot of times I think the majority of people will give something to affect to just address the symptoms, like you said. But you said something very important that by doing that, can actually make it worse. So you want to just go a little deeper into that piece because that's something I don't think people realize that by putting the medication on and not addressing the root causes. Why don't you just go into that a little
Sure.
more?
I mean, sure. Let's take minoxidil or Rogaine. They're the same thing. So, um, it can it can work. Um, but again, it's a Band-Aid. It's not getting to the root cause. And when you stop it, you f- you lose all the hair that you gain, that you maintain or gain per se, or if you can. It doesn't work for everyone, but it's in small print and you lose all your hair. So, I mean, it's like a lifelong sentence. And it's all these, I mean, you're losing your hair because your body's under stress. You have toxins, you're out of balance. So that putting those medications either on topically on your scalp, or there's plenty of medications you can take for hair loss, but they don't address the root cause, just like bone loss, and they put more stress on your symptom, on your system, on your body, and it makes it worse in the long run. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm just really seriously on a mission, because just being dismissed over and over as and I was struggling, but I knew there had to be a better way. And I did a ton of research, and I've helped a lot of women, um, because it is something out of balance in your body, and you can be used as a gift, especially for, like I said, something like osteoporosis, or it just osteopenia. It's a really good symptom.
So let's go okay, so let's get meanwhile, look how gorgeous your hair is. So how bad was your situation?
Um, it was coming out in handfuls. I lost about 50% of my hair. And it was
Wow.
really, I don't have any
Over
pictures 'cause I didn't want to take any pictures.
over how long a
It was
period of time
years.
was that?
Um, over about, 6 months. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, now
Yeah.
you have gorgeous hair, and it's so
Oh,
wonderful,
thanks. Yeah, I
how
mean,
these things turn into a blessing where now you helped yourself and you also are helping the world. Okay, so let's get back to my original question. So what are the most common root causes that you see that are underlying this when people dig deep and figure it out?
so inflammatory, hormonal, digestive, which includes nutrition, but digestive, are you absorbing your nutrients per se? And then stress induced. So really, those are all the same as bone loss.
Exactly. So someone who's listening and they're saying, "Oh gosh, that's me." So it's handfuls. It's not a little bit that's coming out. So number 1, is that the definition where you need to take action? You know, like when you
No, no, I mean, you'll see it in the shower. It's normal to lose, you know, 100 hairs a day. That's normal. But if you're losing like 100, 150 a day on a for months on end, that's abnormal. And you'll see it. I mean, it'll be in your brush, it'll be in the shower, it'll be in your bathtub, it'll come out in your hands, it'll be on your pillow. I mean, it was everywhere. It was here, there, everywhere.
okay,
You'll know. Yeah.
so people who are listening and they say, "Okay, yes, that sounds great, Julie. I would like a more natural approach." Where do they start? What's step 1?
Step one is first doing some functional labs to figure out what type of hair loss you have, because there's different types. There's stress induced hair loss that's more like the telogen effluvium, where um, you're you're under so much stress that um, your hair goes into resting mode prematurely. So it just is like, I have too much else to deal with in my body. I'm so stressed that my hair's the last to get the love. So it just stops growing, because there's 3 phases of hair growth, and it goes into that resting phase prematurely. So there's that, and that's what the COVID shed is. They're calling it the chronic telogen effluvium, a stress-induced type of hair loss. But the good thing about that is, it normally comes back. And then there's the autoimmune type of hair loss. Now, all hair loss is called alopecia, but it's the um, different types of autoimmune alopecia, like areata is what Jada Smith has. That is definitely an autoimmune, and that usually starts. You'll see like coin size um, fall out. Women can pull up their hair and you see like round bald spots. Um, so there's that, and then um, hormonal, and that some of these you can also hormonal often is because obviously your hormones are out of whack, or your your DHT, dihydrotestosterone, is elevated. It's going down the wrong path, and that often happens when you're stressed out. So there's overlaps here, and then of course I think the most important one is if you're not absorbing your nutrients, and that was initially how mine started because I didn't know I had this major gluten problem, and I ended up being anemic. And so I was eating like a horse, but I was not absorbing it. I didn't know. I was just I had a Margie, I worked in the media. I worked at Warner Brothers. I worked in the media and I had a very high uh go 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 lifestyle. I was late night parties, and you know it was crazy. And it wasn't until actually my mother was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, um, and was going into emergency surgery the next day. And so I moved back to my hometown of Denver. And when I was trying to figure out why she got so sick, I finally slowed down. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm putting blinders on my own health. And it was during that transition that I finally paid attention, because that's when my hair started falling out, just clumps. So
Wow.
sometimes it takes something major for people to be like, "Oh, okay, I need to pay attention now." And I found so many. I found out I was hypothyroidism, I had H. pylori, and again, it can be a bundle of things. Just like bone health, you're not losing, you're not losing your bone strength per se because of one thing. It's usually a myriad of these top 4 that I put in these 4 functional categories, because there's over 50 causes of hair loss per se. But I put them into these 4 functional categories that also, doing a stool test, any functional labs, and a lab that can see what nutrients you're deficient in, or even surplus of nutrients. You can get too much of, say, selenium or even magnesium, and it gets your body out of balance. Even biotin, which is in every hair supplement, drives me crazy, but you can get too much of that.
And
Um,
how would someone know? Just from the I guess, from the micronutrient testing, they would see that they
mhm,
have too much biotin?
mhm,
Hmm, that's
mhm.
is that something common that you see? Too much magnesium and too much biotin?
It's not common, but I do see it. I do see it. In
Wow, what
fact, yeah, I I I know of another client's client, or per se, that um, went into a health food store, didn't listen to his practitioner, and thought, oh, more is better. So he took a ton of magnesium and ended up in the ER.
oh my. No,
Yeah.
it's true. Sometimes people think more is better. That happens a lot with calcium, just more, 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 and we know that's not the case. Something that's very important in this community with bone health that I see all the time, as do other practitioners, is gluten, issues with gluten, whether it's celiac or just, and I mean, obviously more, we see way more of just people who have sensitivities to gluten and wheat. And that's interesting that you see that a lot as well with hair loss.
Right. Also, because gluten can cross react with some other foods and actually can put that hair follicle, it can actually damage the hair follicle. And I have some great before and after pictures of it's a study published in PubMed. It's a 14-year-old boy, and he literally had no hair. And he went on a gluten-free diet just for a year, full head of hair. Just a year.
Yeah, so
A-
interesting. And how
And
long
I
do you
know that, go ahead.
no, 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 continue.
Well, and I also know that um, osteopenia, osteoporosis is often silent and is because of silent celiac disease. And that's what it's traced back to. Because how can they absorb their nutrients? They can't.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's known. The celiac disease is known. Most practitioners will test for celiac, but it's such a small percentage of the population, whereas, people who have issues with gluten is a very large percentage, and a lot and then those people are unfortunately missed, but it's interesting to see how many also have hair loss. Yeah, that you're saying that that's a common cause of, you see that a lot.
Sure. And even H. pylori, which makes it so that you have a hard time absorbing your nutrients. And um, Dr. Tom O'Brien, who shared on my summit some before and after pictures of someone who had H. pylori. It was a succession of like 8 pictures. He was pretty much lost almost all his hair. And then he got the H. pylori under control. Again, full head of hair, succession of 8 before and after pictures.
Wow. So step
Yeah.
1 is really doing a deep dive with a functional medicine practitioner or getting the functional labs and seeing what the root cause is. And I think that's important for everything. I mean, I know with osteoporosis, because otherwise you're just masking it, as you said. So that's step 1. So I guess depending upon what you find depends on the treatment and how long it will take.
Sure. Sure. And also removing those toxins is my first. I go through the 5R approach. So the first approach is usually takes the longest, is the most important. And you're removing the toxins from the environment, the GI tract, and also, emotional or, you know, toxins could be a bad job, a bad relationship per se, because that all has an effect on your hair health, your bone health, because it causes that inflammation. It causes you not to be able to absorb those nutrients. It just, they're finding out more and more how important it is to get that stress under control because it's now they're saying that there's of course stress induced hair loss. Stress plays a huge role in bone loss, but every disease, even they're even saying it plays a role in cancer. So I know we're not going to go there today, but
Yeah, I couldn't
uh,
agree with you
yeah.
more. I mean, that's such a huge piece of all the work I do, and I just see it very transformative. And as you said, sometimes it's a good thing if you've lost your hair or you're losing bone, it wakes you up. And to just look at your lifestyle and see where you may be crazy, or you're so stressed out and you didn't realize that this is having damaging effects on your body. And once you make the changes and change the lifestyle, everything gets better and your hair comes back, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. So
And
so
also
okay, so
I'm
finish what you were saying about the 5 you said there's
oh,
5 pieces that you look at and deal with.
sure. So remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, and rebalance. So the replace and the reinoculate can be different because SIBO can cause hair loss. When someone has SIBO, they can't have those certain probiotics makes it worse. You have to go with like spore-based probiotics. There's some probiotics now made especially for SIBO. And then reinoculate, you have to stay away from most all the fermented foods until they get their SIBO under control. So I get, this is a framework, but um, it is different for everyone. That's why it's important to do functional labs before you go through, growing back your hair. You don't want to go down a rabbit hole the wrong way or wasting time or money, if that makes
Okay. Yeah,
sense.
and how long do you what's the time frame? I know it's very different depending upon what you're dealing with. I guess once something is improved, once you've improved it, how long, what have you seen, to start seeing improvements with the hair growth?
I've seen some of these ladies have told me that they've seen their hair completely grow back within 90 days. Um, One of my clients, she said, um, she's like, my hairdresser can't believe it. and she had to go in like more often than she did before because her hair was just growing back so much. But that's a short time frame. It normally takes longer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in terms of people, what are things that everybody listening, what are some things? Are there certain things that just people could do to, help with their hair and just help keep a healthy scalp that, that everybody listening can do? Are there some good things?
Sure. It's just start with the basics. Get in that good nutrition. Get in 20 grams of protein at every meal and get in those vegetables that have the fiber and drink half your body weight in ounces of water a day and move and you know, assess your sleep so you're getting good quality sleep every night. You can't heal anything if you're not getting that quality sleep. It's going to get your blood sugar out of balance. I mean, that's another thing with hair loss. It's women with PCOS or diabetes or um if they're insulin resistant, it's really hard to grow your hair because you've got so much inflammation going on. So the basics, and I like to keep it simple. I call it PFC. That's protein, quality protein, fats, healthy fats, and carbs. That's complex carbs. Complex carbs. So that's not, you
Explain
know,
that so when people listening may not understand what that actually means. The complex
sure.
carbs.
So complex carbs are really vegetables. Um, and the reason they're complex is because you want to eat them in their skin. They have the skin and they slow down the digestive process. Whereas simple carbohydrates is breads, cereals, grains, and they're they turn into sugar right away in your system. You might as well just eat a candy bar. In fact, like eating a Snickers bar with the peanuts or the nuts, whatever is in them, um, is really the same as having a piece of bread or pasta So complex carbs is, I think vegetables, and it's not so much fruit, because fruit does normally have a lot of sugar. The best fruit are blueberries. They're highest in antioxidants, but and highest, they have the fiber and lowest in sugar. So just make it simple. Every time you eat, half your plates of vegetables, good quarter size, and that quality protein, and cook with and garnish your food with those healthy fats. And it's really important to pay attention to all three of those and get quality ones, because if you're eating conventional meat, poultry, eggs, you're getting all those hormones and antibiotics and all those nasty things. The same with the vegetables. Try to eat organic. But and getting the water. I mean, people dehydration is very common, especially as we get older, because our we just don't sense when we're thirsty. So the rule of thumb, like I said earlier, is half your body weight in ounces of water a day.
And you see that makes a big difference, that the dehydration could really exacerbate hair loss.
It can, but just it aids in your digestion and detoxification. I mean, um, in the remove process, I do labs to see if they're detoxing properly. Are they methylating properly? Because if they're not, then they're going to have buildup of bad estrogen or bad this or that, and you have to you have to remove to open. Close one door to open the other one,
Yeah.
and you. That's why it's important to work with a practitioner to go in those steps, or you can really, again, like what you do, you can end up they can end up wasting a lot of time and money if they try to Google it and do it on their own. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of lifestyle practices that, does it matter your sheets? Does it matter? Are there anything that people can do also to help with their hair?
Right. So, going back to kind of what you do, getting the nutrients to your scalp, circulate into your scalp. That's another reason, we have an epidemic. There's 80 million people in 2020 in just United States, 80 million that experience hair loss. But anyway, so doing like a down dog or a handstand or a headstand, getting those nutrients to your scalp every day, just a couple minutes. And there's plenty of exercises that you know about that you can get or massaging your scalp, just getting, it's like bones or it's a living thing. And our scalp hair follicles is the newly discovered microbiome, and it requires an enormous amount of energy. It actually has the third highest cellular turnover in the body. So, of course, you need those nutrients to absorb. You need to get them in the first place. And if you're not absorbing or not, you need an enormous amount of, again, energy and nutrients for your scalp microbiome. I call it the forgotten organ because, and it is an organ, but it gets doesn't get the love like the vital organs, of course, to keep us alive. But if you're so out of bounds that everything's just going to those vital organs to keep you alive, including your bones, then your hair, it's the last thing that gets the love.
But yet
um,
people really care about the hair. The truth is people
yeah,
care very much about how they look. So I think they care. I think they just don't know. I don't think uh, am I right about that? Like, why don't I think people seek treatment, but a lot of times they're just getting the Band-Aid treatment. Am
they
I right?
are.
People care. People aren't happy if they're losing their hair.
Oh, especially women start
Yeah.
our crown glory. And then back to answer your question as well, silk pillowcases retain 43% of the moisture in your hair and skin. Plus, they feel great. So that's a little hack. And make sure you get silk, though, not satin. They're marketing the satin pillowcases. You want silk. And yeah, so that's another little hack. And I don't have it with me, but there's this 28-prong scalp massage thing that you
Oh,
can
I've seen
buy.
those. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's on my website, but it feels great, and that's something you can do every day.
Oh, just to get the
And it's
blood
just
just to get circulation in the head. Yeah, so interesting. Are there
and
any
just like
essential oils or anything that you recommend? Anything natural that people so let's say somebody has hair loss and they're going to start doing the functional test, but they don't want to keep losing their hair. So are there any alternatives to the medication? Is there anything they can do temporarily while they're starting to work on all these root causes? So with the pillow, they can get a silk pillow, number 1.
mhm, yeah.
Start doing all the good eating things that you've talked about, number 2. Is there any other things that they
Yeah,
can
and
add?
getting that circulation to your head. Also, topically, essential oils can help stimulate, the follicles, especially peppermint and rosemary. Those are the top 2.
And how would you use that? How would what's the best way to use those essential oils?
I think getting some good emu oil, you can use that as a base or castor oil, but I think emu oil, there's some studies that says that helps um with the scalp health. You can put it in that instead of just putting that rosemary or peppermint just straight is a little bit harsh on your scalp. So putting it in a base of emu oil.
If people don't have that, because that's not that easy to come by. Emu oil is also very rich in, vitamin K2, interesting. Um, but if they can't get that, is any carrier oil, like would coconut oil be okay or
Olive oil.
olive
Olive oil.
oil? That would all be fine. Okay, so
Mhm,
so you're
mhm.
in the shower, like, what exactly would you'd mix it with the oil and
It'd be best to put it on at night, and then when you take a shower, say in the morning, then it absorbs all night.
okay, and just put a cap on your head so you don't ruin
Mhm.
your silk pillowcase? You buy this expensive silk pillowcase and then it's
Yeah, or at least put it on for a couple hours beforehand. Because if you just put it on for 5 minutes, it's not going to do much. It needs to
Right, so just
absorb.
just putting it in the shower isn't really gonna do much if you're
Right.
just it smells so good. I mean, the rosemary always smells fantastic. And how often would you use that if you're going, trying that treatment? How often would you do it?
Um, Once to twice a week.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
then I also want to point out that there's some topical products that can cause hair loss. In fact, there's about 10 companies in lawsuits now. I'm just gonna name off some of them. Diva Curl, L'Oreal, Johnson and Johnson. You can watch this show. It's called Not So Pretty. It's the fourth episode, and it talks about all these toxins that people are putting on their hair using as, you know, whatever, even shampoos, conditioners, styling stuff that is causing hair loss. So be careful. Make sure you get clean products that don't have all those nasty chemicals, are gluten free. Um, and some of the hair straighteners are causing cancer. So that's again, that's not the that those are all band-aids anyway. So get down to basics, take care of your health, and just get some clean products to wash your hair with.
Do you recommend going to the environmental working group if people wanna check
That's
their products out? Where would you say that would be one of the better where would you recommend?
Yes, that's a great place. They have a whole segment on not only hair products, but makeup and yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
it's concerning. Like
Yeah,
to
it's
have these
very
major,
upsetting
yeah.
if you're, trying to look good and here you're using something that can actually cause hair loss. That's very upsetting. So you're doing something really amazing. I want you to share about your summit because, we're just touching on some of the topics, but there's so many areas to delve into. And I know how hard it is putting a summit together. So why don't you share what you've done and what people can learn on the summit because, there's just it's a big topic and what's exciting to me is that there's so much that can be done. It's not okay. And I think people think they have to live with it and they don't. So share about what's on the summit for people to learn.
There's something for everyone to learn because, like I said at the beginning, there's so many different causes of hair loss. So we go deep into so many different subjects. I mean, even like mast cell activation is a cause of hair loss. There's tons of studies. Mold. We have a mold expert. Um, we talk about digestive health, SIBO, bone health. I mean, there's so much correlation. Uh, Bone health. Of course, you're a featured speaker, and um, Ellis is another speaker on the summit. Um, Gosh, I there's
Yeah,
so
no,
many
it's
topics we covered that you really just need to listen to it and maybe even get the transcripts because um you it's you're everyone's different. Everyone's hair loss is different. Everyone's journey is different. There's no one no one size fit, approach. There's different approaches for different people, different types of hair loss, and that's what the summit covers. It's all about natural approaches and getting your body, your health into balance so you can naturally regrow hair. But it takes some investigation, some detective work, and that's what the summit represents as well. There's a lot of great resources. Um,
What
yeah,
are the
it's
things when people I mean, our talk, we discussed some of the even why osteoporosis medication can actually affect your hair. So it's, it lots of things to know about, but it is so similar. This philosophy is so similar to with bones that you have to dig deep, figure it out. And when you do, really wonderful things can happen. So it's just interesting how things will manifest itself. But I know you also, when you just for signing up, there's some good freebies people get. Can you share what some of those are?
sure there's a freebie on mold, on parasites, on there's recipes, there's digestive guides, there's supplement guides. Uh, I,
That's great. Yeah.
yeah. Go
We'll
ahead.
have no, we'll have all the information for that. Well, I think you're really a role model. I mean, look at you with the hair, and what have you seen in your community? You've been doing this for quite a while now. Why don't you share some of the wonderful things that you've seen with when people do address the root cause and take your approach to hair loss?
Well, they lose weight. They also meet all their other goals because they're getting their body into balance, and they're pretty much like me. They finally decide to pay attention because of their hair loss. So they meet their other health goals. Their skin clears up. They lose weight. I mean, as far as like are, but they usually have some internal imbalances going on. Their digestive health is usually a complete mess. We just get everything into order. And the biggest thing and the biggest message too that I think bone health has is that you can do something naturally about hair loss as you can with bone health. The big myth is, oh, I'm too old to do anything, especially about bones. Like people think bones are so stagnant, and people think, oh, I have the genetics for hair loss. Well, that's all a myth. I mean, I have studies where two identical twins, one went bald, the other great hair, but they had different lifestyles. They lived in different countries. And just like in bone loss, hair loss is worse in the United States than anywhere else in the world. Why is that? We go back to the four main categories. People live these inflammatory lifestyles. If they're not eating right or absorbing their nutrients, their hormones are all out of whack, and they're continually under stress and not managing it. So, if anything, this summit will give you hope and guidelines to make the proper steps. And it's up to them. It's up to you if you want to do some work and resolve this. That's a bottom line. We're giving you all the resources and information.
All right, Julie. So you've done such a good job explaining all the root causes and what can happen when women lose their hair. Is it a little different with men?
It is different, but it goes back to the basics. And I also want to point out this abstract that I have, this peer reviewed published abstract. And I have 4 studies on there, and 3 are with men who were told they'd never grow their hair back. And this is another reason I'm so passionate about this subject, because all 4 of the subjects took what I call a gut reboot, but it was a fecal microbial transplant. They abbreviate FMT. And you can see the before and after pictures. 2 of them had alopecia universalis over, that means they've lost hair over their entire body. And you can see the before and after pictures.
Wow,
This
that's
one
so
guy
interesting.
had no hair after full head of hair. And my favorite on this study, there's a woman and she had lost all her hair up here, like a crown of hair. And then my favorite on this abstract, I got the studies as PubMed studies, so anyone can look up these studies. It's not my patients, but he was an 86-year-old man. So he had an alopecia spot, those bald spots that men get, and it all filled in just from getting his gut healthy. So the point of having it in my abstract is that gut health matters.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So for everyone, if you don't know what the fecal transplant is when 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 they transplant your microbiome with they put in your colon actually some very, very healthy stool, I guess is the best way. But regardless, it's going to give you a new microbiome, and they've been seeing unbelievable results when and just highlighting how important our gut is at the microbiome, and they've found that with the bones as well. That's so interesting, but I just want to ask you something what you said before. If it's been a period of time that you haven't had hair and things have scarred, you said at that point that, sometimes it's too late. Is there an actual, for someone who's been bald for years?
Well, that's why I love this study, because these men have been bald for years.
Wow. So
So,
interesting. Yeah.
mhm.
Wow.
But you have to, so FMTs are not that accessible. They are available in the United States, more so in Europe, but also some people have taken them, like grown back their hair, gotten rid of this, that. I mean, they first started doing it for C. diff. But if they don't keep up that lifestyle, they're just going to regress back.
Right. So it's really get down to the basics. And I just think that reinforces how important the gut is. And we, you know, deal with deal with all these symptoms that and go to the underlying root causes, really wonderful things can happen. So, well, this has just been so great. Is there any last minute things you want to share? I think the summit sounds, just so wonderful. So many different speakers and so many different areas. And I really enjoyed being one of your guests. And I just think that there's, if you do have hair loss, figure it out because you know, why just be masking it when you can, as you said, look what's happened to you and all the people that you work with.
Right. I would say go listen to the summit with an open mind. It is the first summit ever done on a functional medicine and nutrition approach to hair loss. So the $1 billion hair industry does not want you to know this, does not want you to hear this. And you might get pushback. I get pushback on social media, but that's actually a good thing because I know that I'm bringing something to the forefront that people need to hear. They need to hear this. They need to have hope. They need to have options because they don't have to go get a hair transplant, which, by the way, most of them don't take anyway because that person's not healthy. So they'll spend all this money, very painful, I guess, to have hair transplant. And months later, it all falls out. So this summit is really going to give you some deep dive options to not only grow your hair, but just improve your health. And that's why it's called Healthy Body, Healthy Hair, the truth about hair loss.
Oh, well, it's great. Well, I'm really excited for it, and I can't wait to hear so many interesting speakers. And thank you so much for joining us and shedding light. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you so much, Margie. So nice being here.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Julie and have a better understanding of hair loss, what can be the root cause, and what can be done. And the good news is there's so much that we can do. I'm really excited about Julie's summit because there's so many great speakers who are really going to look into all facets of hair loss and really share their experience. The link to that will be in the show notes. And if it's beyond the time of the summit, you can also just check out Julie's website for all sorts of resources. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.